We're live. Welcome to the CHW Studios channel where we talk about all things music and we help you learn new things, and we hope to learn new things as well. Today, we're going to be talking about time signatures, so I'm joined by a couple friends. Why don't you all introduce yourselves, starting with Lance.
Oh, I have to go first.
You got to.
I am Lance, and what am I supposed to say?
Just it,
Is that it?
just your name, I guess, is good. Why don't you tell us your favorite time signature?
Oh man, my favorite time signature. Gosh, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because I write songs pretty often, and they're almost always in 4/4 or 6/8. But 5/4 is just really great. It's not very popular in worship music, which is what I write the most of,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate, but probably for the best. But I love a good 5/4
All right. All
because
right.
I love that it can feel like you're missing something or adding something depending on how you use it, and that to me makes it really fun.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. And I've already introduced you. You're Britt. Why don't
I'm
you
Brett.
why don't you tell us your favorite time signature?
My favorite time signature, especially to play in, is probably 6/8.
Cool.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite one to play in. But yeah, I would agree. I usually most of the stuff I write is in 4 or maybe 3/4. But yeah, I don't venture outside of that very often. But for the record, 5/4 is a cool time signature,
5/4 is
as
fun.
is 7/4.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a fan of 9/4 though. That's just getting weird.
That's too many beats. Split it up, people. I mean, you can do something else here. So really the purpose today is to teach people as much as start a little discussion on what time signatures are and how they're useful and if they're useful and what you like, what you don't like. So I'll just kick it off by talking about what the two numbers mean, and you all can chime in at any time. So the way that I always teach this is that, let's say we're in 4/4, probably the most typical on the planet. The top number answers the question, how many? And then the bottom number answers the question, what kind? So if we're 4/4, it means we have 4 notes within a measure, and the 4 on the bottom means that they are quarter notes. Thoughts?
Bingo.
All right, shut it
Yeah,
down.
I concur.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
What? How long did it take you all from like hearing about time signatures to really knowing like what they mean and how they work and even using them? Because it's crazy to me at this point in my playing music career that some people don't really know what they are or what they mean.
I think for me, because I grew up taking piano lessons, so it didn't take long at all for me to understand what the time signature was or how to use it. But I guess in terms of playing with other people, yeah, it's not something you talk about a lot. First of all, most songs are in 4, which that's the other thing. Everybody just says it that way. Nobody ever says it's in
4/4.
4/4 or it's
Yeah.
in 6/8 or 3. They just say it's in 4 or it's in 3 or it's in 6 or it's in 11 or whatever. Um, so they rarely even talk about what that bottom, number is.
Yeah.
But definitely if you're reading sheet music, standard notation, it's important to know. And so for me, I learned it pretty quick. But I don't think I learned the subtleties of it for a really long time. The subtle differences between like 3/4 and 6/8, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we
Yeah.
will definitely talk here in about 1 minute about the difference between
Sure.
3/4 and 6/8. It is a hotly debated topic.
It is.
Lance, any thoughts before we get into that?
Yeah, I had sort of a weird upbringing here, and I'm glad it was this way because it was fun. But I learned pretty like untraditionally at first.
Okay.
Um, so like I started taking guitar lessons when I was in 7th grade, and my teacher, who is a very talented musician, kind of had his own methodology, and we did talk about some theory, but we focused more heavily on how to use your ear to the point to where I became really comfortable with like the natural number system and things like that. But anything that was like beyond a chord chart, like I just didn't really see it a lot, and I certainly wasn't reading sheet music. So by the time I got to college and I had the bright idea to become a music major, I actually failed my theory entrance exam like so bad that it was comical.
Nice.
Because I knew things, but I didn't know them on paper,
Right,
and that's when I
sure.
realized like, oh my gosh, there's all these things that like I just was kind of behind on, and so I worked really hard to bridge that gap for the next few years. But time signatures, like I got it, like I understand like 4 and 4
Right.
and whatever, but
I can count.
like same, yeah, I can count a little bit. But same with you, Brett. I didn't really think about the subtleties of it, and I didn't really start to think about the time signature as a device I could use to create music until way later on.
Yeah, I gotcha. I was telling Britt on the last live episode we did that I also did not test into a theory class that counted toward my major, so I had to take like the 105, the basics, and man,
Yep.
that teacher was just angry all the time because we had so many questions. It was like, I think I know what you're talking about. I've heard of that. Like I know what that sounds like, but what is it called? Same kind of feel for sure.
That's so funny.
Yeah, she was
Nothing worse than an angry music teacher.
she was an angry old lady.
Right.
And who cares about Circle of Fifths when you're first starting college?
Nobody.
Jacob Collier, that's it.
Yeah.
So differences
He's beyond the circle of fifths.
Yeah, right. Differences in 3, 4, and 6, 8. I have a fairly brief and concise explanation, but I really wanted to hear from you guys. Like, how do you think about a 3/4 song versus a 6/8? And do you have any examples off the top of your head of either one?
I think part of it for me, it's sort of the difference between 2/4 and 4/4, or 2/2 and 4/4. But I think some of that also is there's a lot of interpretation there, and I don't think this is a hard and fast rule at all.
Yeah.
But for me, when I think of a song being in 6, I think of it being it's where the accented beats are. So if I think of it in 6, I think of it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's got that triplet feel, but it's mainly 2 pulses. Whereas if I think of it in 3/4, it's 1, 2, 3, like all 3 beats get the accent. Whereas in 4/4, generally I think traditionally the 1 gets the accent and the 3 gets a lesser accent. In more modern times, because of the backbeat and everything, we kind of almost in a way shift that.
Yeah.
So the 3 kind of gets at least an equal accent. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is probably to me more of a 2 feel than a 4 feel, but at the same time, I don't really necessarily divide those up. I think I'm being kind of pedantic there.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but that would be the difference between 3 and 6 for me, is that in 3, all 3 counts get an equivalent stress, and in 6, it's the 1 and the 4. It's mainly a 2 feel with triplets.
Yes. Yeah. See, I learned it as a technically 2 feel. You divide that top number by 3 whenever there's an 8 on the bottom. And then in the next theory class I took, they're like, no, you don't always divide the top number by 3. What if you're in 5/8? Can't do that. Also, you mentioned pedantic. Isn't that a foot doctor, or am I thinking of something else?
That's a pedantic.
Yeah. See, it's
Pretty
all
sure
Podantic.
it's all about
Podantic's
emphasis.
the guy from the new Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. He flies the Y-wings.
Yeah.
That guy.
Exactly.
The guy from Ex Machina.
This is a great movie. Great movie.
Incredible.
Lance, how do you think of 3, 4, and 6, 8?
Yeah, I wouldn't change much from what Britt said. I think that this conversation is why talking about music is so hard, is because you start to develop your own syntax around it, and like it's like I know it's 6/8 and I know it's 3/4, but I don't know if I could ever explain to you in a good way why.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest thing with 6 is that I think in songs that I can think about that are in 6/8, I just have this like feeling that all 6 notes are required to push the song along. So even if you start to even if you're not staying right on the 6 beats, where if you're doing something like doom doom ga doom doom ga, like even if you're pushing the beats around, you still feel the movement of the entire 6 beats before you get to the next thing.
Right.
Whereas with 3/4, you get 3 really strong beats and you just need all of them. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and even if it's a waltz or whatever, the song that comes to mind is from Elevation Worship's last album, not the one that came out today, Hallelujah Here Below. The whole song is in 3/4, and if I'm not mistaken, the tempo is 63 beats per minute, I believe.
It's a slow boy.
It's slow, and dude, I've seen brilliant musicians like trip over this song, myself included. Like, not that I'm a brilliant musician, but I did trip over the song. It's weird how weird it feels, and all of a sudden, because like I listened to the song a couple of times, and all of a sudden I was like, is this in 3?
Yeah.
I had to like think about it for a second, and I was like, yeah, this is in 3/4. So yeah, I think that's usually the difference for me, is that if it's in 6, I feel the natural energy of 6 beats pulling the song along, and if it's in 3, I feel the natural energy of 3 beats pushing the song along. That's probably the best way I could explain how my feelings factor in.
My feelings about music, man. I latched on to something you said there too, because it just, I don't remember what you said, but it reminded me of being in school and hearing one theory teacher talking about something, and then another theory teacher talking about the same thing but different words, a different approach.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, you're all saying the same things, but there's no regulation to like what to call things in music. And so true in jazz, especially, where you can call something a 7 chord, and some people are like, yeah, but which 7 is it? This could be anything. We would all probably say that's a dominant chord, but it's confusing kind of language. So I think we saw
there's only a certain level of like of this is what this is, and then there's like a whole other world of adjectives that like are completely, case by case. Like if I call something, if I hear a song, I'm like, oh, that cadence was really bright. What in the world does that? But I know what it means, and you probably do too. But but what is that? Like I love that kind of stuff because it just makes music kind of fun.
Yeah. For
Same
sure.
thing with like a warm sound and a cold sound. Sound is not warm or cold.
It's not.
But we know what that means.
Yeah, if you say that, I'm so with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think we solved the 3-4-6-8 thing. The only thing I would add to it is just that 3/4 makes me think of a waltz. It's always like the pa 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 pa. Not to be confused with anything Willy Wonka related, but it's like 1, 2, 3, or like Hallelujah Here Below. Since we're all good church boys, or 2 out of 3 of us are. That accent is very much on the 3, like 1, 2, 3, and it's so slow. It's like there's no way this could ever be confused with like 6/8.
Right.
So, along the lines of this discussion, how would you all describe the time signature for "Hold the Line" by Toto?
Ooh.
Down, 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 down.
I mean, my gut reaction is to call it 6/8, but that'd be a really, really fast 6/8.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I started counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. That's definitely how I feel it in my gut, but that is a really quick count.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really difficult because I think at the same time, you could feel it in 6/8. You could also feel it in 4.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Because you have
4
backbeat,
with the accent kind of
2 and 4, right?
Yeah, you get the backbeat on the 2 and the 4. And so I think that as a matter of fact, I remember I was playing with some guys one time, and the guy who was playing drums, I forget what exactly he did, but he wanted to think of the song I think he was thinking of it in 6, and the guitar player and I were both thinking of it in 4.
Right.
And we didn't even realize we were all doing that. But it was kind of one of those, like, because really the only difference is you're talking about, are you thinking of it in triplet or duple? Are you thinking of it in 2s or 3s?
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Darian, I think part of it depends on, I think, what instrument you're playing and what the part is you're playing. If you're playing the triplets, you're going to think of it in 6. If you're playing not the triplets, you're going to think of it in maybe 2 or 4.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're going to hate me for this.
Is Hold the Line in? Is it 12/8?
That's what I was going to say.
It could be.
You know, like technically,
yeah.
if I was looking at it on paper, at least, I would want it to be 12/8. If I was thinking of it in a playing sense, I would be like, it's just 4. Let's just call it 4 and then never talk about the numbers ever again.
It has such a heavy swing. That's
yeah.
So that's what's so great about it.
But see, you could argue the 6/8 and just call it fast, but anything that's fast enough in 6/8, I just call 12/8. And again, there's no regulation for this. So,
well, okay, I would say part of it depends on, though, where are the changes happening?
Yeah.
That to me is part of how I decide, like, is it 6/8, is it 12/8, is it 3 or is it 6, is it 2 or is it 4? And I think there's more wiggle room between 2 and 4. But to me, if you were saying it's in 12/8, but it's changing chords, especially halfway through each measure, I'd almost argue, no, that's in 6. And not necessarily the chord changes, but like if that's where the melody ends, whatever it is, not that it can't ever cross the bar line, because it certainly can, but that to me is a really good idea of where you should start counting again.
Yeah. And I think as I teach different musicians on different instruments, that's what I try and think of the most if I'm talking time signature, is how, like, what's the easiest way to understand this on paper? And that song on paper, at least for, like a beginning level musician, 6/8 is probably the best way to go, because you can split things up pretty easily and then have the 12/8 conversation later, maybe.
Yeah.
But also, like, I always give the caveat, like, this may not be helpful for you, but I want you to know that it's out there.
Yeah.
Right. I remember being told a long time ago when someone was talking about 12/8 that if it sounds like it's in 4 but it has a swing and it's too fast to count in 6, it's 12/8.
That's perfect.
So, like, it just checks all the boxes. Hold the line, I'm calling it 12/8, because it does have such a heavy, like, downbeat, but he's swinging the beat, like, so perfectly that it's like you can feel the swing, or you can, like, stress the downbeats, but it's kind of somewhere in between. I love that ambiguity, but now that we've all talked about it, I'd probably stick with 12/8 on that one.
Yeah, I think counting wise too, it's easier for me to say out loud 1 enda, 2 enda, 3 enda, 4 enda, rather than a fast, like 1 2 3 4 5 6. It just feels busy in my mouth, and I hate it.
Yes. Yep, I'm with you.
All right, well, we solved 12/8. We got 6/8, 3/4. Everybody knows 4/4. Let's get to the kind of weirder ones. So what would you say is your favorite non-conventional? Lance, you mentioned 5/4 or 5/8, and do you make a distinction?
Yeah, there's definitely room for ambiguity there. 5/4 I like more than 5/8. Well, I don't know. That's hard for me to say. It's I love 5/4 like I said, because it's you're so used to 4 having such heavy downbeats that adding 1 feels like it breaks your brain, and that the creativity you can have with that device is great. And then 5/8 for me usually tends to feel like 6/8 that's missing a beat. So you're swinging it like you're in 6, and then you just skip the last one. It feels like your brain, everything has just been violated by skipping that beat. And again, the creativity that you can have with that like you're tripping people's brains, because what they're used to, you're taking it away. I think that's a really brilliant musical device. And so, I think there is definitely a distinction between 5/4 and 5/8, but how you use them, or how I hear them, is definitely more aligned with 5/4. I feel like it's 4 with an extra beat, and then 5/8, I feel like it's 6/8 with without a beat.
-1, yeah. I think there's a good argument for that, for sure. Like 5/8, if I was writing a paper on it, taking it very academically, 5/8 only happens if you're mainly in 6/8, and then everything else in the world is a fast or a slow 5/4. Maybe.
I love it.
I don't know. Britt, what do you think?
Between 5/4 and 5/8.
Yeah, and also just any other unconventional time signatures.
I was originally going to say that I don't think there's a difference there, but after hearing you guys talk about it, I would kind of agree with that. I guess there is a difference there that I hadn't really thought about. Generally, though, I would say that the bottom number is more going to be how you choose to write it. And then I think a lot of that just makes which of these make the most sense, which note gets the beat. I mean, technically, I guess you could give it to any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certainly pieces written in, something over 16. And again, things over 2. I mean, you could do it however, but thinking about it for sure, I think there's just because 6/8 is more what you're used to hearing than like 4/8. And 4/4 definitely more than even like 6/4, although you do see things in 6/4 too. But so you've changed my mind. But yeah, in terms of like trying to think of, I do like 5, just because I think it's different, but it's not so different as to really like mess you up, and you can do some cool things with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, then really beyond that, I think you start to get into additive time. I don't know if this is jumping ahead, but if you have something in 11, you're probably not going to count to 11. You're going to count it 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3, or something like that.
Right.
Where you start kind of intentionally breaking it up, and then of course you've got the 5/4 clave, the classic Mission Impossible, dun 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 dun, but yeah. So I don't know, in terms of my favorite odd time signature, I like 5/4. I also like 7.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think you start to really get it. I really do enjoy additive time signatures like that.
For sure.
But I think you start to get into the realm of what you're really doing is you're modulating through them anyway, more than you're actually no, you have to count to 13 every time.
Right.
I also really like songs that do intentionally change, between groupings of 7 beats and the groupings of 8 beats.
Yeah.
And so they're actually changing the time signature as you go.
Yeah.
I remember I was in chorus in high school, and I don't remember the name of the piece, but I remember we had one that literally every measure was in a different time signature.
Whoa.
And that's exactly what they were doing. But it was in 3/8 and then 4/8 and then 2/8 and then 3/8 and then 4/8 and then 2/8. And it was just, that's all they were doing was just shifting the beats a little bit.
Right.
But it was one of those, you couldn't really entirely learn how to count it. You just kind of learned what it sounded like and went with it.
Yeah.
And then you just feel here's the beat, and don't even worry what number this is.
Sure.
Just keep up.
Yeah.
This is it.
You mentioned 11/8 as well. I saw that Austin Earp, I'm not sure if I pronounced your last name correctly, sorry buddy, is commenting a few things. I wonder if he knows this song. It's by Norma Jean from an album from 2002, and it's in 11/8, but it's a grouping of 4 and then 4 and then 3 at the end.
Okay.
So it's so the 3 at the end leads you back in a little soon, and it's really jarring, and it's a really scary song because they were a scary metal band back then. So I just wonder why call that 11 when you could call it 4, 4, and 3? Do you all have you all encountered things like that where it's definitely in 11 beats, but I think of it differently and I kind of break it down that way?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I would think it's what you just said. I would think of it in 11 beats because the whole rhythmic idea happens in 11 beats.
And chords wise as well.
Yeah, and that to me is really what defines that more than anything is where you're gonna. It's almost where you're gonna finish your sentence. That determines where the period goes. You can't just put periods wherever you want to. It has to be at the end of the concept. And so that would be my thought, is that it has to follow the end of the. Really more the that idea, not necessarily even the whole phrase, but that idea.
Yeah.
More or less.
Right.
But I do think at that point you start to get into, what you're really doing is 4 + 4 + 3, or, however you want to break that up.
Yeah.
3 + 3 + 3 + 2, or whatever. more than actually sitting there counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3. I don't know anybody that actually does
terrible.
that. Yeah. Because you're just going to complete it's like if like you mentioned earlier, Lance, like a song that's in like 63 BPM, you're not going to count as 1, 2, 3. Like you're going to be so lost off the beat so quick. So instead you're counting as like 1 and 2 and 3. Even if there's not 16th notes there, you're going to have to count them all out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
The only time I ever count that high is if I'm hearing a song and I don't immediately pick up on, I'm like, okay, this is an odd time signature. I don't know what's going on here. I'll count to 16 by quarter notes and then be like, okay, now that I know where that phrase repeats after 16 beats, I can start to hear where they separate from each other. So where it's like, 3 measures of one thing and then another measure of something else, and that's how the phrase repeats. But the only time I count to 16 is like the first time.
Right.
I'm not going to keep counting to 16 by like, especially if it's like, like you said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can't
Right.
even, there's no way to do that. So that's why it makes sense to subdivide in your head, like, 3 measures of this and 1 measure of this or however it shakes out.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Oh, wait, did I lose you for a second? Sorry, I keep scrolling back to the live video, and it's like 10 seconds ago, so it looked like you were still talking and no sound was coming out, so that's my bad. Very, very scary. I was going to talk about 9/8 a little bit, because, Britt, you were just counting a second ago, 1 and 2 and 3 and...
Yeah.
So when I learned 9/8, it was another one of those, if 8 is on the bottom, divide the top number by 3. Therefore, 9/8 is technically 3, but tripletized. 1 and 2 and 3 and because we don't want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Terrible. But then Dave Brubeck, 40 years ago or something, released this album that has Take 5 on it, a jazz song in 5/4, and then another song, and the name of it is Leaving Me, but it's in 9/8, but the emphasis is like da 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 da. So it technically isn't 9/8 until the fourth measure of that phrase, and the first 3 feel like something completely different. So I guess, what's your experience with 9/8? How would you count that? How would you think of it and feel it?
Okay, so I was actually going to bring this up because I was I sometimes transcribe pieces just because I think that's a really good way to learn things.
Sure.
And to really improve your ear training is to listen and try to transcribe what people are doing. And so I was transcribing this piece the other day, and I was doing it in 3/4 and putting everything in triplets. And then to kind of self-check myself, I was going to see if somebody else had. They put the whole thing in 9/8. And so of course 9/8 with no triplets, because it just automatically has that triplet feel. To me, that's almost more of like preference.
Sure,
I think.
Sure.
And I don't know that I would know enough necessarily to say, which way is more common or not. I think a lot of it depends on the background you come from. I do think 9/8 is probably a more common like jazz concept.
Yeah.
I think triplets are more of a classical concept. I don't know enough to say that that's actually true, but that's kind of my feel on it.
Sure.
So
I think I would agree, just because so much of jazz, or I guess we could talk about it as swing instead of jazz, but so much of that is like a triplet feel. So if you're playing in 3, but you're doing a jazz tune like Someday My Prince Will Come, that's going to feel more like 9/8, the way that we're talking about it, at least.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's when you talk about adding swing tempo to it as well, I think that, a lot of it depends kind of, do you want to count the swing or do you want to feel the swing? How are you going to swing it? Are you going to do a triplet swing? Or are you going to do something else? If you're doing a triplet swing, then for sure, I think you can count it through in triplets.
Sure.
If you're not going to use a triplet swing, then probably not.
Yeah. Just don't. It's kind of like that 4/4 versus 12/8 kind of thing for me. I think just from being in school and learning some of these other styles, like Afro-Cuban is where more of the 12/8 kind of thing comes from, or
Sure.
where I've experienced it more. And it makes more sense to think about some of those with that time signature in mind because of where emphasis falls and things like that, where to place some different clave type things within the beat. So, yeah.
Claves.
Yeah.
Emphasis Falls sounds like it could be a metal band name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all I have to offer to the 9/8 conversation.
Which ones have we not really gone over? Are there any others that are technically non-traditional but that might be used a little more that y'all can think of?
We haven't really talked about. I don't think we talked much about 7/8.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I was gonna say
feel
other
like-
than 7, 8, and then 13.
Yeah.
Eight.
Oh, 13.
13, I
Oh.
can't think of a single song off the top of my head that would be in 13, but 7, anytime anyone throws around 7, I just think Rush.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
Was it Tom Sawyer or was it YYZ? I don't know Rush very well.
Tom Sawyer used 7
That was 7.
a good bit,
7, 8.
but it changes meters kind of throughout the song.
Yeah.
Actually, do you guys know Strong Songs, the podcast?
Oh, that's a great podcast.
He did an episode on Tom Sawyer not too long ago, and it's I could never do a better job. He said everything eloquently, so
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. But yeah, that is something that Rush used. And again, I don't know Rush's entire catalog, but that Tom Sawyer to me, every time I hear it, I feel like that's an occasion where I feel like it's missing a beat.
Mhm.
It takes one away.
Yeah.
It feels very takeaway to me.
Yeah. And on
There's a beat that should have been there and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Absolutely. And I would say on paper that song is like 4/4 and then moves to 7/8 because technically it's 8/8 and then you're missing a beat. Nobody wants to talk about any of that.
Semantics.
I hated it as I was saying it. Oh, Jordan Travis in the chat. How are
Yeah,
you doing,
that's a
by
good
the
one.
way? He mentioned Pink Floyd Money being in 7/4. I would definitely call that one 7/4 as opposed to 7/8 because of the tempo and where everything falls there.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know that song. Or maybe I do, and I
Dum ba da 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 boom ba
Okay,
da
okay.
da da. Yeah,
I know of the song, but I couldn't say I know it.
it's Dave Ramsey's theme song.
Is it really like on his
Son of a
show and his
gun.
podcast?
I think so.
It
I'm pretty sure.
probably-
I don't. Yeah,
that checks
yeah,
out.
Oh man.
yeah.
I want to go.
That's probably what it's most famous for nowadays.
That's hilarious. That was one of the first songs I learned on bass, and really before I knew about time signatures. Not that I could play it well or anything, but it never occurred to me that it was in an odd time signature. So I think that one's a really cool example of like, yeah, it's an odd meter, but you can still kind of bob your head to it. I don't know
Yeah.
that you would dance to it necessarily. I wouldn't.
But it feels natural. Like I think that it's to me there's a lot of skill in writing in a odd time signature like that.
Yes.
That and still making it feel smooth.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and honestly, like again, going back to Mission Impossible is in 5, but I think most people don't necessarily realize that because it's that clave da 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 da. But even then, it doesn't feel like a lot of times, like you said, in 5, it feels like there's one extra beat, and so it's almost like you want the measure in, but then it keeps going, and so you kind of feel like you're always tripping over it. But yeah.
Man,
and then also, Austin Eric brought up 13/8.
Yeah. And Aaron Porter is yelling at Lance for not knowing Money. I was gonna say, what was it? Mission Impossible theme. If it wasn't for bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel right at all. That feels even more uncomfortable.
It's far less exciting.
Yeah, and I think
it's like if you ever heard the Mario theme in a minor key, or if you hear honestly, that's not as weird. I was watching a guy one time talking about this kind of rhythm stuff, but he was saying, if you take the Mario theme and you take all of the syncopation out of it and just line everything up on the beat, and it's really like it's jarring.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Like I think with Mission Impossible especially, that one was set up to create like unease and anticipation and all this stuff. but it's to the point now that if you changed it to something else, that would be even more strange and uneasy. Like if it was in 4, or try to fit that clave in 3 or 6 or something. So
Sure.
One of my favorite like brain breaking odd time signatures of recent memory is from Muse. They have a song called Animals on The Second Law. That the whole song is, again, this is where it gets weird. I really don't know for sure if I would call it 5/8 or 5/4. I'm probably leaning towards 8, but at the end of the song, during this like big outro, it gets really dramatic, and Dom, their drummer, is still playing the 5 groove, kind of 5/8 groove, but then he starts he half times what he's doing on the ride to the point that it stops falling on the freaking downbeats, and it like I can barely listen to it without feeling like my skin's on fire because it's like it's so uncomfortable, and it's the perfect thing to do.
Yes.
But like that's an example to me where it's like 5/8, 5/4, I don't really know, but whatever they did, whatever he's doing here is like creating an unbelievable amount of tension.
Yeah.
And that seems to be where, like, you know, odd time signatures can either sound so good that you don't notice, or they can sound so jarring that you feel like you're getting hit in the face with the living fish. It's one or the other. Like it hurts, or it's like, or you don't notice at all. And I love that. I think that's really interesting.
You definitely win the superlative of best analogies for this episode.
Yeah, that was a solid one.
I think I stole that from Pete Holmes. I can't be sure.
Sure.
Oh, he says lobster. He says this joke is the feeling of getting hit in the face with a living lobster.
That's somehow worse. There's a lot less give there, I think, and potential for, like, I don't know, they were ripping your eyelashes out or something, which is what people tell me it feels like when they listen to Meshuggah, and that's what that reminded me of, that whole, like, him changing the cymbal to where it's more of a straight groove in a different time signature. You just defined Meshuggah's entire catalog past, like, 1998. Because they've been interviewed before, and the drummer was like, every song that we play is in 4/4. Like, the guitars are just playing riffs that don't come back around for like 23 beats. And then he plays his kick drum along to that. So that's a fun academic exercise. They make me feel very peaceful when I listen to them, which doesn't make sense to most people.
Whatever floats your boat, man.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of run the gamut of different time signatures that you might hear just in normal listening. Well, maybe not all normal, but I was going to ask, like, what popular songs do you all know of that are in odd time signatures?
Aside from Money.
Yeah. Dave Ramsey's song, Money by Dave Ramsey.
I'm terrible when people put me on the spot like this too.
Yeah. I'll send them all.
I feel
to
like
you next time.
I feel like I'm the wrong person to ask because all of my favorite music, you know, or most of my favorite music is not popular, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not trying to like flex on you guys.
I just talked about Meshuggah for too long, so I don't know if it's a flex or what.
I will say, if you want to hear a lot of non-normal time signatures or quote unquote odd time signatures, like prog rock that's a huge thing in prog rock.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to know what 5 measures of 5 sound like, you know, if you want to get into stuff like that, I guess to me, that's probably the most common place you're going to hear stuff like that. But I think there are a lot of songs in a lot of different genres where you can at least break apart kind of what I was talking about with like additive meter, where you can break apart the rhythmic ideas into smaller rhythmic ideas.
Yeah.
And not like counting triplets as tiny measures of 3, but actually feeling it through that. You know, I know that's a big thing as a bass player, being able to break up the rhythm into smaller chunks. You know, if you ever see like shorthand notes that a drummer makes, as I'm sure Asher has made before,
probably
you know,
not too pretty,
but where you end up with like literally just counting to random numbers that aren't actually anything. You're literally just counting like, 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. Because you're literally just counting out how the rhythm is subdivided. You can do that in a lot of different things.
How soon into that do you start hating yourself? Is my question.
Oh, I think pretty quick into it, but chances are you're probably doing this for a grade, because in the real world,
yeah, really,
people generally shy away from that, or you're being paid to do it, and so it's like, well, I'm not going to complain too much.
Or you're in a band that
people
doesn't play very many shows,
right? Yeah, probably because that's how your music sounds.
Yeah,
yeah. It's a lot like I think rhythm is a lot like harmony in this, because they're combined. Rhythm and harmony makes music, and the more off the beaten path that your rhythm gets, the harder it is for people to follow and understand.
Yeah.
And the same thing with harmonies. You can do a lot of really rich, complex harmonies, but the farther outside the box you get, the smaller your audience is going to be.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I just Google searched like popular songs and odd time signatures, and I found this list, and one that caught me off guard was Electric Feel by MGMT. This has it listed as 6/4.
Yeah.
But is it 6 the whole time? I don't.
Yeah, it is.
Oh boy.
It definitely is. You should go listen to it and let it blow your mind once it gets to that instrumental part, because that feels like either it went into something weird or it feels like it went into 4, maybe like 4/4.
Yeah.
But it definitely stays in 6. I have a very close relationship to that song and that album as a breakup album a long time ago. So
good times.
Nope.
Good times.
Nope. No, that's an incredible song though.
That is a good one.
Wasn't that great live? It's a weird mix and a strange show, and everyone was on some kind of substance, and I was like, I need to get out of here.
I need to get out of here.
It was at Bonnaroo too. That was a weird band for me to see at Bonnaroo. Anyway, Joe Collins said in the chat, "When Your Mind's Made Up" by The Frames is in 5/4. It's also in the Oscar-winning movie Once, so it's technically popular.
I love it. That is a great song. I didn't think about that one at first, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think he's also saying that it was a real dance party banger.
Is he saying that about?
No, I'm pretty sure that's not what he's saying about.
Right. I think
Could be wrong.
Electric Feel as well. Cool.
That is one thing that, like, especially when you get into odd time signatures like that, it does become much more difficult to dance to if it's not in a nice even meter.
Yes.
So,
which is,
if you're wanting to write dance music, probably just stick to 4.
Stick to 4. Do the
even numbers, if nothing else.
Yeah, or 3. I mean, you could do it in 3, like a waltz. Waltz works. That's
Fancy
obviously
waltz.
a dance.
Yeah.
But you might not want to stray too far from that. 6 works if you're writing for like Riverdance.
Well, yeah. And dancing to that is probably the most aerobic exercise you can get for your buck. Back to Meshuggah, because everything points back to Meshuggah for me. That was their reasoning for having all of their songs in 4, because as crazy as they get otherwise, polyrhythmically, they always want people to be able to like headbang with them. And if you ever go Google their videos, which I do not recommend, their lead singer is always just like nodding his head and rolling his eyes back in his head in the creepiest way possible. So there you go. That's a good time.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we are coming to the end of our time here. Do you all have any closing thoughts on time signatures? And by the way, we will definitely pick this back up again next week with some talk about harmony and chords and some other fun stuff. So, yeah, anything else about time sigs, as a cool kid say?
I love it. A little quick funny story. 2 weeks ago, my sister and brother-in-law came into town, and my brother-in-law is a brilliant musician. He's a great drummer, and he's pretty much good at everything. But we were talking about anytime we get together, we're always like, the first thing we do is we start showing each other the music we've discovered since the last time we saw each other. He lives in Chicago, so he came in, we were showing each other, and I was showing him this song from Mayday Parade, which they're kind of like a 2000s to 2010s emo band, and not usually one you're going to think about when you think about like the the pantheon of I'd argue they're amazing. They have this song on their album Black Lines. It has like this intro and there's a melodic like kind of interlude later in the song that I've this album came out in 2015. Okay, so 5 years ago, and I've been listening to it that amount of time, and I've tried counting it a bunch of different ways, and I could never figure out exactly how to center it to where it made sense. Okay.
Right.
So I'm showing Zach this song. I'm like, dude, you got to hear this. This is really cool. And so he's like sitting there and he's like patting on his legs and he's like, bro, it's in 4. And I was like, get out of my house. No, it isn't. And so we start counting, and he, as surely as the day is upon us now, that song is in 4/4 the whole time, and it never changes. But the way that they change the chords is bizarre.
Yeah.
And if you don't like, you really got to sit down and think about it. And then I've never felt more stupid. It literally is just 4/4 the entire time, but the chord changes are in places where they do not belong.
Right.
And it's really, really great. So if whoever's watching, if you want to listen to the song, it's called Keep in Mind Transmogrification is a relatively new technology. I think that's the whole name of the song.
Is this an emo song from the late 90s?
It's an emo song from 2015, so close enough. But yeah, give it a listen, because it's one of those where it's like, I would have sworn it was in it on a time signature, and I've been trying to count it, in different ways for 5 years before I realized it was in 4/4.
I love those stories too, because like thinking back to when you couldn't feel it and you couldn't count it. I'm that way with pickup notes on songs sometimes. Like if a song starts with a pickup, it's like, that's the one. And then you get into it and you're like, oh crap. And sometimes it takes a few songs.
We have to talk about the iPhone ringtone.
Okay.
You guys know about this?
Quickly though, because I'm teaching soon.
All right. Do you know what I'm talking about though? There's one of the okay. I'm gonna give it away, but okay, so I hear that little turnaround as a pickup, and I feel the downbeat on.
I can't do that. I can't even do that.
4, 1, 2. That is how I've always heard it. Do you guys hear it the other way?
Yes, it's definitely the other way for
100% I hear it the other way.
Play it and count it the way that you hear it.
Wait. No. I think we're hearing it the same way. So dun 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 dun. That's the downbeat.
Yeah, that is beat 1 for me.
Yes. What you said confused me. That definitely feels like beat 1.
Okay. There are people who don't hear it that way.
I think I hear it the other way.
Yeah. Okay.
There are people who hear that first note as the first beat, not as a pickup.
Okay.
And I can't do it. But do you know what I'm saying?
I have to hear the actual ringtone. I'm not entirely sure what we're talking about here, but I feel like I would hear it the other way.
Yeah.
We can bring it back next. We can bring it back next
with
week.
With a 2-beat rest.
This is a hot debate with people that my worship pastor. He hears it the other way, so he hears the first note as the downbeat. And it's just bizarre to me that two people could hear that and interpret it 2 different ways, and I absolutely cannot change the way I hear it. It is forever cemented in my brain that way.
That's crazy. Yeah, we'll kick things off with that next time, and then maybe we'll talk about the notes and the harmony there, because we could probably get into some debate on like what key that ringtone is in. Who else in the world is talking about the keys of ringtones here, people?
What else are we gonna do?
Incredible. Yeah, like quarantine's over, we're still doing it. All right, cool. Well, check us out next week. We'll be posting and let you know when we're going live, and come and troll us or ask us serious questions. Logan, I see you there. I didn't want to mention you, but I do see you there. And we'll see you later. Signing off.